Evan powers on the camera for the first time, but the screen lights up before his finger even touches the switch. A recording plays on its own. Grainy, shaky, whispering with static. The footage shows his apartment door half open, swaying gently like someone just stepped inside. He freezes. The timestamp reads 3 hours from now. A cold flicker rolls across the lens, stretching the shadows until they look like thin fingers. Something brushes past Evan, though the room is empty. The camera vibrates, humming like it's trying to speak. A new frame flashes. Someone standing behind the door, a silhouette too tall and too still. Evan steps closer, heart pounding, breath sharp. What records before the camera even turns on? Who walked through his door in the future? And why does the figure in the frame slowly raise its hand, as if waving at him? Evan replays the impossible footage over and over, hoping for a glitch he can explain. But each time the video remains identical. Same shadows, same silent figure, same timestamp from the future. The room feels heavier as he moves through it, like the air thickens around the spots where the figure appeared. When he aims the camera toward the door again, the screen restores the hallway to a version he hasn't seen in years. Fresh paint, new light bulb, no cracks in the floor. Reality jumps between what he sees with his eyes and what the camera shows him. He steps closer, unsure which version is real. His heart thumps louder with each frame. The restored hallway feels warm and alive, humming with something beneath the surface. Evan wonders if the camera is replaying old memories, revealing hidden layers, or showing him a world that doesn't belong to him anymore. Evan turns the camera toward the stairwell, expecting the same strange restoration. Instead, the device shows Mara standing on the bottom step, staring up at him. She doesn't move or blink, just waits. Evan lowers the camera, but the stairwell is empty. When he raises it again, she's closer by 3 steps. A cold pulse ripples through his chest. He whispers her name, but the only answer is a faint hum coming from the camera's body. The footage vibrates softly, like the device is remembering her more clearly than he ever could. He steps back as she climbs another stair in the viewfinder without moving in real life. The world splits in 2 versions. One where Evan stands alone, and one where Mara climbs toward him with empty eyes. The camera pulls her closer with each second, rewriting the stairwell with her presence. Evan tests the camera outside, hoping fresh air will clear his head. The empty parking lot behind his building lies silent under the cloudy sky. He lifts the camera, expecting nothing unusual. Instead, the lot fills with cars that no longer exist. Old models, faded plates, some he recognizes from childhood. People walk between them, unaware they are ghosts of something long gone. Evan lowers the camera. The lot is barren again. He raises it. Life returns. One figure turns toward him through the lens, face calm and familiar. Mara again. But this time she raises her hand like she wants him to follow. Evan feels a pull, like gravity shifting. The world beyond the lens feels more real than the cold asphalt beneath his feet. He wonders if the camera is trying to show him something he lost, or pulling him into something he was never meant to see. Evan returns to his apartment shaken. He sets the camera on the table, but it continues humming softly, like something inside is still moving. He sits across from it, watching the lens dilate open on its own. A soft click echoes from inside the device, followed by the sound of someone walking in the hallway outside his door. Evan freezes. The camera screen flickers, then shows the inside of his apartment from a higher angle, an angle he has never recorded from. The footage reveals a tall, thin figure standing behind him in a corner he cannot see. His pulse jumps. Slowly he turns around, but the corner is empty. When he looks back at the screen, the figure is closer. The archive is no longer a distant shadow in the frame. It stands inches behind his recorded self. Evan swallows hard, realizing the camera isn't just showing the past or the future. is showing something that wants in. Evan walks through the abandoned textile mill on the edge of town, a place he explored years ago when it was still half intact. Now it's little more than rust and dust, gutted by time, echoing with hollow wind. He lifts the camera, expecting the same dead scene. Instead, the world blooms into impossible life. The machines hum again, belts turning, lights glowing, warm gold across the factory floor. Voices drift through the air, workers chatting, metal clanking, someone laughing far away. Evan lowers the camera. Silence returns, raises it. The world is alive once more. He steps forward slowly, hypnotized by the restored colors and movement. But the workers never look at him. They pass through him like his, not there. Evan's heart thuds in his chest as he spots Mara near a machine she never worked on, staring straight at him through the lens. And behind her, the archive stands still, tall, patient, waiting. Evan moves deeper into the mill, drawn by the strange mix of fear and awe. He shifts the camera toward a rusted control panel. Except in the restored view, it shines like new, covered in switches and glowing gauges. An old clipboard sits beside it, full of handwritten notes. He reaches for it, fingers trembling. His hand passes straight through. The camera lets him see what no longer exists, but it doesn't let him touch it. A cold whisper rolls through the room like a breath too close to his ear. He spins, expecting someone behind him, but the world without the camera is empty and still. When he lifts the device again, the clipboard has fallen to the floor, and a chair has turned toward him, as if someone was watching. Evan swallows hard. The restored world is reacting. It isn't just replaying. It's aware of him, and whatever is inside it wants him to move deeper. Evan heads toward the loading bay, his nerves stretched thin. The camera view becomes unstable, flickering between present ruin and restored order like a heartbeat. Mara appears again, but this time she walks through the restored space with purpose, not the strange stillness he's grown used to. She glances over her shoulder as if expecting him to follow. A strange ache grows in Evan's chest. Memories of their last conversation, a fight he never resolved. He calls her name softly. She pauses in the viewfinder, head tilting just a little. But the moment he lowers the camera, she vanishes. He feels the pull again, like a gentle tug behind his sternum, drawing him closer to the moving version of her. He raises the camera, and she's further away now, walking down a corridor flooded with warm light. The archive trails several steps behind her, casting a shadow too long for the angle. Evan steps after them. Evan reaches a massive metal door at the back of the mill, a door he never noticed before. In the ruined view is rusted shut and half collapsed, but through the camera is pristine, polished, and slightly open. Warm yellow light spills from inside, flickering like firelight. He lowers the camera. Darkness, raises it. Light. The difference feels like stepping between two lives. He steadies his breath and peers deeper. Two versions of the same room overlap in his vision as he switches the device on and off. Restored barrels, crates, coils of rope, all things gone for years, yet glowing with perfect clarity. The archive stands in the center of the restored room, hand slowly reaching toward the door as if inviting him. Evan's skin crawls. The camera trembles in his grip. Whatever lies inside that room is not just history rebuilt, it's something waiting, aware, and opening doors one by one. Evan steps back from the restored door, unable to bring himself inside. His breath shakes as he tries to steady the camera. The restored image flickers violently, then sharpens with a painful clarity that makes his eyes water. The archive is closer now. Too close. Its tall, still form fills nearly half the frame. Behind it, the restored room begins to warp, walls bending inward like the scene is collapsing under its own weight. Mara appears at the edge of the frame for a moment, reaching toward Evan before dissolving into static. Panic builds in his chest. The restored world is changing faster, reacting harder, bending toward him like a living thing. The archive lifts its head slightly, as if acknowledging him for the first time. Evan lowers the camera with shaking hands, but the humming continues. The restored door creaks open on its own in the real world. Something is crossing over. Evan rushes back to his apartment, hoping distance will break whatever connection the camera has made with the mill. But the moment he steps inside, something feels wrong. The air seems thicker, the light dimmer, as though the walls themselves are holding their breath. He raises the camera to check if anything followed him. The viewfinder shows his apartment, but not the one he recognizes. The furniture is rearranged, cleaner, newer, as if showing him a version of the place from years ago. He spins slowly, comparing both versions of the room, heart thudding as each switch of the lens shuffles time around him. When he turns toward the kitchen, the restored world reveals someone standing at the counter. Mara. She stares down at an old mug he threw away long ago. Evan lowers the camera. Empty kitchen. Raises it. She lifts her head. The archive stands in the doorway behind her. Evan feels his breath freeze. His home is no longer his. The restored version of the apartment becomes more detailed with every second. Evan keeps the camera raised. Faded memories return uninvited. Old conversations, quiet nights, forgotten routines. Then the audio shifts. Soft murmurs drift through the speaker, like snippets of arguments he once had, echoing faintly through overlapping timelines. Evan lowers the camera to silence. When he raises it again, he hears his own voice speaking words he doesn't remember saying. Mara's voice answers, calm but sad. The kitchen scene changes. Now she sits in a chair that no longer exists, head down as if reliving a moment long erased. Evan steps closer and her voice cracks through the speaker, broken by static, asking him why he didn't stay. His throat tightens. He lowers the camera, shaken. Silence. He lifts it. She looks directly at him. And behind her, the archive leans closer, its presence bending the edges of the room. Evan backs away from the kitchen, struggling to catch his breath. The apartment feels smaller, like the walls are inching inward. He turns toward the hallway, hoping for clarity, but the restored world shows something impossible. A door that never existed. It sits where a blank stretch of wall should be, painted the same color as the rest of the apartment, yet subtly warmer, like it was used often. Evan lowers the camera. The wall is normal. Raises it. The door waits. His pulse quickens. A faint sound emerges from the speaker, like soft footsteps pacing beyond the door. Evan whispers Mara's name, unsure who or what he expects. The footsteps stop slowly. The doorknob turns in the restored world, though nothing moves in the real one. The camera vibrates in his hands like it's urging him closer. Evan reaches out with a shaking hand, torn between fear and curiosity, as the unseen space shifts behind the impossible doorway. Evan steps closer to the restored door, pulse hammering as warm light washes across his face. He raises the camera and slowly peers inside. The room is familiar. A bedroom he once had in another apartment years ago, down to the exact pattern on the curtains. His old belongings appear restored, arranged with eerie precision. The bed is neatly made, slippers tucked beside it, books lined on a shelf in the same order he once kept them. He lowers the camera and sees only blank hallway. Raises it. The room calls to him, glowing with artificial warmth. Mara sits on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap. She lifts her head, as if waking from a long dream. Evan tries to speak, but his breath catches as the archive stands behind her, one hand hovering just above her shoulder, never touching. The room feels like a memory rebuilt from something that was watching him all along. The longer Evan stares at the restored bedroom, the more unstable it becomes. The corners begin to warp, bending like soft clay. The room flickers between states, clean, ruined, clean again, each shift harsher than the last. Mara's form becomes transparent, her edges fraying like burned film. The archive remains perfectly stable, untouched by the distortion. Evan steps back as the camera grows hot in his hands, the hum turning into a low rattling, like gears grinding. The restored door pulses with light, then begins to shrink, collapsing inward as if the room behind it is being erased in real time. Mara reaches toward Evan with a dissolving hand before vanishing completely. The archive straightens slowly, turning its faceless head toward him as the final fragments of the restored room collapse into darkness. Evan lowers the camera, breathing hard, but the blank wall ahead of him still glows faintly, as if something on the other side refuses to disappear. Evan wakes on the living room floor, unsure how he got there. His head feels heavy, as if packed with fog. The camera lies beside him, still humming with a low pulse like a heartbeat. He checks the time. 3 hours have passed, completely lost. The apartment is silent except for the soft electrical buzz coming from the viewfinder. When he lifts the camera, his breath catches. The footage shows him lying on the floor exactly as he was moments ago, except the angle is from the ceiling. No camera was ever placed there. As the footage continues, a tall shape drifts into the frame. The archive kneels beside his unconscious body, placing one long hand over his chest. The moment the hand touches him, the timestamp jumps backward and forward at once, skipping seconds like broken teeth. Evan lowers the camera in panic, but the room feels different now, charged. Something happened while he was gone, something he didn't witness, but the camera did. Evan staggers to the bedroom, terrified of what the footage might reveal. Next, he points the camera toward the bed, expecting the restored version he once saw, but instead the screen remains black for several seconds before flickering to light. Mara's voice whispers through the speakers, faint but clear, calling his name. The room in the viewfinder brightens slowly, revealing Mara sitting in the corner with her knees drawn up, head bowed. Her lips move as she whispers something too soft to catch. Evan leans closer, heart pounding. The whisper grows louder, not from the room but from inside the camera itself. When he lowers the device, the room is dark and empty. Raises it, Mara lifts her head, eyes filled with a strange mix of sadness and warning. She mouths a single word before the image breaks into static. Don't. Evan freezes. He doesn't know what she means, but every part of his body understands he's already too close. Evan forces himself to test one more thing. He sets the camera on the dresser and hits record, pointing it toward the bed where he plans to lie down. He needs to know what's happening when he isn't holding it. Minutes pass as he settles into the dark. His eyelids grow heavy until sleep overtakes him. When he finally wakes, the camera is still recording. He plays back the footage with trembling hands. At first, it shows him sleeping soundly, nothing unusual. Then the blankets shift on their own. A shadow slides across the wall, long and thin, bending at impossible angles. The archive enters the room silently, gliding instead of walking. It stands next to the bed, its faceless head tilting slowly, studying his sleeping face like examining a specimen. Then its arm extends farther than a human arm should, reaching toward the camera. Evan's breath catches as the figure leans in. The last frame shows its hand covering the lens before everything cuts to black. Evan grips the camera tightly, heart hammering. He turns the lens toward himself, just to confirm he's still real. But the live feed shows a version of him sitting upright in the bed, staring directly into the lens with lifeless eyes. Evan stands across the room, yet the reflection of himself in the camera remains still and unblinking. The version in the feed slowly raises one finger to its lips, signaling silence. Evan nearly drops the device. Behind the reflection, the room in the feed begins shifting. The walls breathe outward, expanding like lungs. The archive appears behind the duplicate Evan, its tall frame bending unnaturally to fit in the shrinking space. The duplicate turns its head slightly, eyes never blinking. Evan steps back as cold dread crawls up his spine. The camera isn't just copying him. It's starting to create something else, something that watches back. The room around Evan begins to twist, walls tightening like they're pulling inward. The camera vibrates violently, the humming growing sharp and metallic. Mara's voice erupts through the speaker again, louder this time, frantic. Evan lifts the lens and sees her standing in the center of the restored bedroom, reaching toward him with shaking hands. The duplicate Evan is gone. The archive stands between them, its form pulsing like a glitch caught mid-frame. Mara's mouth moves fast, words drowned by static, but her desperation is unmistakable. The restored room flickers harder, pieces breaking off into shards of light. The archive steps forward, and the camera shakes so violently Evan can barely hold it. The restored world collapses, the real world bending with it. The last thing Evan sees before lowering the lens is Mara being pulled backward into darkness by a hand that isn't human. The wall ahead of him cracks, a thin line of light glowing through it, as if another world is pressing to get inside. Evan stumbles through the apartment, struggling to breathe as the walls pulse like a heartbeat. For the first time, the distortions happen without the camera. The air ripples. Shadows stretch and bend even when the lens is down. When Evan lifts the camera to confirm what he's seeing, the viewfinder shows a version of the apartment crumbling, peeling into dust like time is moving too fast. He lowers it. Reality ripples again, matching the distortion exactly. The two versions are merging. The floor beneath his feet feels unstable, soft in places, as if he's stepping on a thin shell covering something deeper. A loud crack echoes through the room. The wall beside him splits open, a jagged line running from ceiling to floor. Light leaks through it, the same pale glow he saw earlier. Evan backs away, terror rising. The camera is no longer the only thing showing him broken worlds. Now the worlds are breaking on their own. Evan tries to leave the apartment, desperate for air, but the hallway outside twists the moment he steps into it. Entire pieces of the building vanish like they were never built, leaving empty spaces filled with soft white haze. The railing along the stairwell is gone. The walls ripple between ruined paint and restored clean surfaces faster than he can blink. He grips the banister. His hand passes through it like smoke. Panic claws at his chest. The camera vibrates violently in his pocket, humming in frantic bursts like warning signals. When he lifts it, the world stabilizes, but in the wrong way. Everything becomes too perfect, polished. The restored version overtaking the real one. Mara appears at the far end of the hall, but her form flickers like a dying bulb. She lifts her hand toward him, reaching for something he can't see. Behind her, the restored hallway bends inward. Deletion isn't just happening, it's spreading. Evan runs outside into the parking lot, gulping cold air. But even the open sky looks wrong. Clouds twist into spirals that shouldn't be possible, looping and folding like fabric being stitched and unstitched. A row of streetlights flickers, turning on and off in synchronized pulses, except the bulbs are shattered in real life. He hears footsteps, but not from the ground. They echo from above him. Evan looks through the camera and sees a second version of himself, walking across the roofline of the building, moving with stiff, puppet-like motions. He lowers the lens. Nothing on the roof. Raises it. The duplicate stops walking and turns, staring down at him. The archive appears behind it, towering, one hand on the duplicate's shoulder like guiding a marionette. Evan's stomach drops. Reality is splitting in layers, and one of them is starting to replace him. Desperate for answers, Evan returns to his computer, tracing every email, every message that came with the camera. The seller's only reply, silent frame, contains coordinates he never noticed before. Hidden in metadata, his pulse pounds as he enters them into a map. The location lies on the outskirts of town, near an old freight yard long abandoned. As he prepares to leave, the apartment dims, like someone slowly turning down the world's brightness. He hears footsteps behind him, soft, deliberate. He spins, but the room is empty. The camera hums louder, directional, like it wants him to follow. Another crack appears on the wall, thin but glowing. The restored world bleeds through faster now. Evan grabs his jacket and bolts for the door, praying whatever waits at the coordinates has answers, because the distortions are accelerating, and the city feels like it's beginning to collapse inward, piece by piece. Evan reaches the freight yard at dusk. The sun hangs low, bleeding orange through drifting dust. The camera hums harder the closer he walks to a set of rusted storage buildings. When he lifts it, the yard flashes into a fully restored version. Clean tracks, working lights, crates stacked neatly. In the center stands a building with a massive open doorway glowing faintly from inside. The archive waits at the entrance, still and patient, as if it knew he would come. Mara appears inside the restored doorway, reaching out with both hands, begging him silently. Evan's throat tight. The restored world behind her sways like it's breathing. He lowers the camera. Darkness swallows the building, raises it. Light returns. Evan steps closer, each footfall sinking slightly into shifting gravel. Everything narrows to the doorway, past, present, and something else converging. The archive lifts one hand, beckoning him inside. Evan knows he has no choice. The camera wants him to enter. Evan steps through the freight yard doorway, bracing himself as the world shifts around him. The restored hallway stretches out like a throat swallowing him whole. The humming grows louder, steady, mechanical, almost like rows of machines breathing in sync. When he reaches the end, he enters a massive underground chamber lit by pale overhead bulbs. Long metal shelves fill the room, each one lined with identical cameras, hundreds, maybe thousands. The sight chills him to the bone. Every camera looks exactly like his. Same scratches, same age, same humming core. He moves closer, heart pounding as the humming deepens into a low chorus. Some cameras flicker to life as he passes them, displaying images of different places, different lives. Some show rooms he's never seen. Others show scenes he recognizes, moments from his own past, moments that never happened, moments erased entirely. Evan realizes these devices aren't tools. They're records. And maybe prisons. Evan slowly walks between the shelves, watching the flickering images. One camera shows an abandoned playground restored to bright color. Another displays a dim living room where a man sits alone before vanishing mid-frame. The deeper he goes, the more the cameras react, screens brightening as if sensing him. Then he stops. One device shows Mara, alive, breathing, sitting on a bench under a bright sky. She looks younger, calmer, untouched by the distortions swallowing the world. Evan lifts his own camera toward the other device. The image shifts. Mara now stands inside the chamber, mere feet away, bathed in soft white light. He lowers the lens. She's gone. Raises it. She's closer. Hand reaching out, eyes pleading. The room feels colder. Evan whispers her name and her expression flickers with pain. She's trapped somewhere between these devices and whatever world the archive maintains. The air thickens, and Evan feels her presence like a warm pulse pressing through the lens. Evan steps deeper into the chamber, following the faint image of Mara as she flickers from screen to screen. Every time he gets closer, she shifts again, always just out of reach. He senses the design of it. The archive wants him moving forward. The humming grows sharper as he reaches the back wall, where a single elevated platform holds one camera larger than the rest. Its lens is cracked, but glowing brighter than any other device. The screen shows something impossible. Evan himself, vanishing frame by frame, dissolving like sand in wind. His breath catches. As he watches, the disappearing version of himself looks directly into the lens, as if aware he's being observed. Evan lowers his camera, shaking. Mara appears beside the large device in his viewfinder, her form glitching violently. She tries to speak, but her mouth forms fractured shapes, sound cutting in and out. The archive drifts behind her, tall and deliberate. It places one hand on her shoulder, and her image folds like paper. Evan climbs the metal stairs toward the massive camera, each step groaning under his weight. The humming inside the chamber grows deafening, vibrating through the rails like a heartbeat amplified 1,000 times. When he reaches the top, he sees the screen more clearly. It shows his disappearance in painful detail. First, his outline thinning, then hollowing, then unraveling like string. He swallows hard and points his own camera at the screen. The two images overlap, and suddenly, the feed shifts. A new scene appears. A giant room made entirely of light, full of silhouettes suspended in shimmering frames. People, hundreds of them. Some move, some stand still, some flicker as if half-formed. Mara stands among them, staring at him through layers of fractured light. The archive steps into the frame, slowly turning its faceless head toward Evan. Its meaning is unmistakable. This is where everything goes when it's erased. A vault of lost moments, lost places, lost people. The light in the chamber flares, blinding for a moment. When Evan's vision steadies, he sees his own camera vibrating so hard it nearly slips from his grip. The oversized device on the platform glows until the metal casing turns almost translucent. Mara appears in the viewfinder again, closer than before, her face twisted with fear. She reaches toward him, mouthing desperate words he can't hear. The archive steps forward, placing its hand between them. The screen fractures like breaking glass. Evan feels a sharp pain in his chest, like something pulling at him from the inside. The humming becomes a roar. Images from his life flash across the screen. Rooms, streets, faces, pieces of his past. He thought he had forgotten. Then the feed shows him standing in this chamber, but alone. No Mara. No archive. Just him. And then even he begins to fade. Evan screams, gripping the camera as light swallows everything. The last thing he sees is his own face, dissolving into the lens. Evan gasps as color bleeds back into the world. He isn't in the chamber anymore. He's standing inside a vast open field under a dark, unmoving sky. The air feels thin, almost artificial, like breathing inside a memory that never belonged to him. He lifts the camera with shaking hands. The viewfinder shows the same field, only brighter, fresher, alive. Ah, flowers sway in a breeze he cannot feel. The restored world looks younger, untouched by decay. Evan turns in a slow circle, heart pounding. Behind him, through the lens, lies a small house with warm lights glowing through its windows. He lowers the camera. The house disappears, raises it. The lights flicker like someone is inside. He steps forward, drawn by the impossible sight. Every footstep feels like stepping between two versions of reality, one fading, one reaching for him. He whispers Mara's name, unsure why, but the wind answers with a voice he almost recognizes. Something wants him to enter the house. Something wants him to finish this. Evan approaches the restored house, each step sending a tremor through the ground, like reality resisting his movement. When he brings the camera to his eye, the house shifts closer, almost welcoming him. Warm yellow light spills through the windows, flickering softly. He opens the door. The world without the camera remains an empty field, but through the lens, he steps into a living room filled with familiar objects, pictures, books, and furniture he knows he never owned. The air feels heavy with memory, yet none of it belongs to him. He moves slowly, scanning each detail. The photos on the wall show him standing beside Mara in moments that never happened, laughing together, holding hands, living a life he doesn't remember. Evan's throat tightens. He touches the frames but feels only cold air. Then the camera's speaker crackles, and Mara's voice whispers, "You weren't supposed to see this." A chill runs through him. He lowers the lens. The house dissolves. Evan staggers back as the room flickers away, replaced by a different version of the house. Dim, cold, abandoned. He lifts the camera, and the restored version snaps back instantly. Mara stands at the far end of the hallway, her figure trembling like a faulty signal. She lifts her hand, but her face shows terror, not relief. "You have to leave," she says, voice broken by static. Evan steps toward her, desperate. The house begins to distort aggressively, walls bending inward, floor vibrating like a living creature. Mara backs away, shaking her head. "You're not supposed to be here," she pleads. Behind her, the archive forms out of the shadows, growing taller, its faceless head tilting. Evan's breath catches. Mara's image flickers between solid and transparent, like she's being pulled in two directions. The archive raises one elongated hand behind her. Evan shouts her name, but the moment he steps forward, the hallway collapses into blinding white. Evan tumbles into darkness. The world reforms around him slowly, as though reality is rebuilding piece by fragile piece. He stands inside a colossal circular chamber made of floating frames, each one showing a different moment, a different place, a different life. Some frames show strangers. Others show him. Others show empty rooms, waiting. In the center stands the archive, unmoving, radiating a cold presence that chills the air. When Evan lifts the camera, the frames respond, spinning faster, blurring into streaks of light. Mara appears in one of them, reaching outward desperately. Evan tries to run toward her, but the ground ripples like liquid, holding him in place. The archive finally moves, raising one hand. The frames obey, tilting toward Evan like rows of eyes. He realizes these aren't memories. They're containers, and his is waiting to be filled. The archive steps closer, offering the final frame. Evan feels gravity shift. The world wants to take him. The chamber begins to collapse inward, frames folding like shards of glass spiraling toward Evan. He lifts the camera out of instinct, pointing it at himself. The screen shows him fading, slowly, painfully, frame by frame. He steps backward, but the ground pulls him forward like a tide. Mara's voice pierces the noise, screaming his name. Her frame shatters, and she rushes toward him in flickering fragments, trying to reach him before he is taken. The archive glides forward, towering above both of them, its presence a cold weight pressing the world flat. Evan's knees buckle as the final frame opens beneath him, a window showing a version of the world where he no longer exists. Buildings stand. People move. Life continues without him. He sees his apartment, empty forever. He sees Mara walking alone. He sees the camera lying in dust. The archive lowers its hand. Evan feels himself fall into the empty world, dissolving like a shadow in sunlight. The last shot recorded is stamped with a date far beyond today,